that's in the attendees. Andrew, if you're listening and you're Andy Simon, can you raise your hand or something so we can promote you to a panelist? Great, thank you. All right, well, welcome everybody. We're at 7 o'clock. There's a whole bunch of us here. And in the interest of time and these guys already being so ready, unless anybody really wants to wait for a particular reason, I'd love to get started with our evening's music. Is it Selma and Matthias? I'm gonna ask you guys to unmute.
Matthias.
Matthias, cool. Well, we're really excited to have you guys and hear about what you're gonna be doing tonight.
I'm playing The Entertainer by Scott Joplin, and what are you doing?
I'm just doing something for Allison's book. It's called The Spanish Caballero.
She's doing something called The Spanish Caballero.
Can you face the camera and smile?
Right. Should I start?
Yeah, absolutely, go for it.
Oh, they're all muted.
Oh.
They're all muted.
We'll clap. Bravo.
No,
Okay, Selma,
sorry, you go.
go introduce yourself and tell them what you're playing. Go sit down.
All right, that's all right. You can tell them again.
My name's Selma.
Hi.
They're all on mute, so you're not going to hear them.
So tell them your name and what you're playing.
My name is Selma, and I am playing
a book from my lesson book called Spanish Caballero.
We say thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you guys. That was so great.
All right. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
meeting.
you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, that was awesome. And if you ever, anyone out there has ideas for musical guests for our NPA of great musicians in our neighborhood, definitely email one of us. All of our emails are available on the agenda posted online. We're always excited to find out new people to host. So I guess now we're going to jump into the public forum. For anybody who hasn't used the Zoom format before or needs a refresher, you have a little hand icon in the bottom middle of your screen on Zoom. And if you press that, one of the members of the team can call on you and promote you to speak. We won't be able to see your video, but we will be able to have you talk. And so I'm gonna go Tony. Oh, where'd you go? Here we go. Right, so you have to unmute yourself.
Unmuted. Am I on?
You are on. Hello.
You can hear my fingers tapping on the piano then. That's good. Okay. I'm Tony Reddington. I live in Ward 3, and I'm a member of the Ward 2-3 Neighborhood Planning Assembly. So I'm certainly happy to be visiting again. And I was at your first virtual meeting and one of the last in-person meetings, and I'm going to talk briefly about the Pine Street Coalition and the Parkway status. First, I want to let you know there's something exciting going on next week. It's the 3rd annual National Roundabout Week, and we'll be celebrating the wonderful things that roundabouts do to cut serious and fatal injuries by 90%. We have 5 downtown roundabouts in Vermont with a half century without a single bicycle crash and only 1 pedestrian crash. So they really do the job with pedestrians and bicyclists of making our city and our state walkable. I want to just quote the Vermont Agency of Transportation flyer that has pictures of Vermont roundabouts. And it says that roundabouts can handle 30 to 50% more traffic. And there are currently 12 roundabouts in Vermont. And they're a proven countermeasure for pedestrians, according to the US Department of Transportation. I do want to say, because it's an every year issue here in the South End, that we've had 10 years now without being able to put the roundabout in at the Rotary on Shelburne Street. I know people are desperate for that, and it really is a black mark on our DPW that they've been given free money to build a roundabout, and it's taken 10 years. It still hasn't happened. Right now, the way things are going, if they delay it because they're waiting for the Champlain Parkway, which may be a long wait, we're talking about 2025 earliest, considering that we finished up the design work on the basic design work on the roundabout, Shelburne Street roundabout back at the Rotary about 2010. The Parkway, the environmental justice is still in process in regard to the Maple King neighborhood. There's really been a revolution in our understanding of the Parkway, even for someone like myself, who's not sensitive to racism and not sensitive necessarily to minority causes. I think we've all changed, had a lot of our consciousness raised in the first few months. I didn't know, for example, that the city of Burlington, that 24% of our folks, our families are in the poverty level versus 10% for the state. That means we got families of 4 living on $500 a week. We need to be sensitive to that. Secondly, we've learned that everybody opposed, the city opposed the routing of the parkway through the King Maple neighborhood back in 2006 and 2007. The city council was against it. Mayor Clavel was against it. Mayor Kiss was against it. And the state strong-armed the city into pushing onto Main Street through the heart of King Maple. Instead of what we all want, and we all want today, is moving that traffic over to Battery Street through the Railroad Enterprise District. And I think everybody is supportive of that. The Pine Street has taken the position that we need a scaled down project to get the traffic, heavy truck traffic off Home Avenue and the south portion of the end of the South End District, and move right ahead then with the connection over to Battery Street, and just leave the King Maple neighborhood alone, where 32% of the folks there have no access to a car. They must be able to walk and use transit, and throwing 3,000 or 4,000 cars through there makes no sense at all. I'll stop there other than to say, we'll keep you posted. Check out our Safe Streets Burlington and Pine Street Facebook pages for what's going on. And I think we may actually make some progress, and we're hopeful that we're going to come to a resolution and everybody come together in a kumbaya moment. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. Andy, I think you can just talk.
Okay, can I talk? I will. Just to follow up on that, I want to point out to people who haven't seen it yet that there are changes across from City Market South, in that the world's tallest filing cabinet has become even taller because it's been raised onto a pedestal, a concrete pedestal, just 10 yards from where it was, or 20 yards from where it was. And in its place, in the path of the proposed parkway, is a new art exhibit called The Road to Extinction, appropriately called The Road to Extinction. Local artists doing different sculptures with filing cabinets. That's very fun and worth swinging around while the weather's good to go see it. So go see the new filing cabinet placement, and also this new exhibit, The Road to Extinction, down on Flynn Avenue.
Awesome, thanks, Andy. Khalil? You should be able to talk now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, great.
Okay, great, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to just provide a quick update on the Birchcliff Parkway Traffic Calming Initiative. We had a meeting on Tuesday with Department of Public Works and VHB, who's the consulting group who's working on some alternatives with them. And Andrew had reached out and to see if I wanted to provide a little update from a neighbor's perspective. So, like I mentioned, we had a meeting on Tuesday. There was about a dozen households represented from the neighborhood, along with DPW and VHB. It was a good constructive conversation. I've been in the neighborhood, my family's been in the neighborhood for about 3 years, and I know this has been a top of a conversation for a very long time. So there was some good discussion around the previous efforts that had been tried and what was positive and what was negative of those. And so I feel like DPW did a good job recognizing what the neighborhood had provided for feedback in the past. And they presented 3 initial proposals with some elements that definitely spoke to the initial concerns. These are, again, they're an initial shot at things, and we had some healthy discussion as to what looked good, what we wanted to change, and some new ideas came into the conversation as well. The primary focus is really on traffic calming on Birchcliff Parkway. Not sure how many folks drive up and down there regularly, but we have, at least on the corner we're at with Birchcliff and Linden, it's a pretty straight, wide road. And so there's a lot of opportunity in there just to, if nothing else, slow people down. There's also some issues with tractor trailers that use the road pretty regularly, even though it's a no truck route. So a couple of key concerns. Along with that comes a pretty healthy consideration for pedestrian safety, adding some crosswalks and things like that for folks going to school and just people using the neighborhood in general. Right now, like I said, they put forward 3 different proposals. We provided a bunch of feedback. They're going to take all that feedback into consideration and revamp the proposals based on that. And right now the plan is to implement these changes along with paving that's slated to take place in the spring of 2021. So it's great timing to take advantage of that opportunity where they're going to be doing construction anyway to implement some of these changes. So that's really kind of the kind of high level summary. I felt good about the conversation and feel hopeful that we'll get some effective changes put in place.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that update.
You're welcome.
Khalil, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, definitely.
What is the speed limit on Birchcliff Parkway?
I believe it's 25, as most of the city streets are. I don't believe we have a posted sign stating the speed limit, but I do believe it's 25. Yeah.
And what's your estimate of the average speed of people going on that road?
So there was some data collection done back in 2017 over a week-long period. There was, I think the 85th percentile of traffic was 31 miles an hour. Our table kind of faces Birchcliff, so we sit there having dinner and listening to cars and watching people go by pretty regularly. And there's where that data was collected was kind of down towards Bittersweet, where traffic is either starting to accelerate or decelerate for the turns. We definitely get the sense, based on our own experience, that speeds are higher from Alder east up towards Shelburne Road, where it's straight and wide. So, I mean, there's definitely, I've seen people going probably 40 miles an hour easily down that or up that. So,
thank you.
Is there anyone else that has anything they'd like to bring to the public comment section? No? All right. Well, we are doing really well for time, but in such a way that I think we have outpaced our next agenda item. We are expecting the superintendent at 7:25, and unless I'm missing something in the attendees, I think he's not here yet. So if anybody at all has anything,
I would like to say something else.
Go for it, Andy.
I'd like to point out that our next NPA meeting is Thursday, October 15th, and that at least part of that meeting will be candidate forums for various offices in Burlington and perhaps statewide. So stay tuned for a request for questions for candidates, and please mark that date on your calendars, October 15th, for the next NPA meeting. Thanks.
Looks like someone else got promoted to talking. Was there someone else with a hand up?
Yeah, I added Mike and Joe, I think it's Joe Restaghini, to the talking permitted slot in case they wanted to say something, and they're in the next block. But
oh, okay, great.
So Jillian, this is Khalil. I did raise my hand.
Oh, okay, great.
Just had a quick question. Andy, I'm glad you mentioned the voting. I was curious. I know there's a big push for mail-in voting, but I was wondering if anybody had any information on opportunities to help that, if there's a need to help for poll workers on November 3rd, if anybody's aware of a need anywhere around nearby.
I actually saw there was a Front Porch Forum post not that long ago saying that there had been an overwhelming number of people in our ward who had volunteered and that they were at capacity and very grateful as far as volunteering at the polls in our ward specifically.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, so Jay, you should be able to talk.
Oh, good. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, good. I have a question about voting. You know where the drop box is going to be? The ballot boxes. Are there going to be some downtown and any other areas? Andy, do you know, or anybody?
For the primary, they had a drop box at City Hall. They may have other drop boxes in the city, and I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I'll look into it and see if I can find out. Put it out
Okay,
on
thanks.
Front Porch Forum.
Thank
And
you.
I
That's all right. Yeah.
Chip and Joan might have a sense of that as well when they join us later on this evening.
Oh, right. Okay, that's a good idea.
I'd look on the city's website. It just says City Hall, and then on election day at the polling place is all they have there. Listed on that website anyway.
Okay, thanks.
So Burlington Electric, I guess, for this group.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
So are we still waiting for our next presenter?
Got 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, as long as we're on voting, people may have heard about this, but in the news today was the fact that a federal district court judge denied the suit that a group of people had brought against Jim Condos, the Secretary of State, and his plan to mail out ballots to all eligible voters. So in fact, that plan is cleared to go ahead, and people should get their ballots by the end of the month.
Wow.
So I think that's good news.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. That's great.
Yeah, 7 Days did a good write-up that included the opinion. It was Judge Crawford down in Rutland who wrote a very excellent opinion, finding that the plaintiffs had alleged no injury that they could suffice other than that of a general voter. Didn't address the merits of it, but it's an interesting opinion. And yeah, the judge took little of their arguments. So.
Since we have a little bit of time, I think I'm the only, well, other than Scott, the only other NPA steering committee member that doesn't have any kids of my own, but I did get 2 little kittens recently. So here's one of them. There's always like a little bit of good time for, cat time, but I think they don't want to be in the picture too much longer. Yeah, no, he's really very, very tiny. Oh, and he's gone.
Cute cat videos.
So,
that's what we needed.
We've got, and there we go, Superintendent Tom Flanagan.
There we go.
So there we go. Perfect timing.
I'll get
There's the segue.
I'll get these other nice people here too. Let's see.
All right, I'm on. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, it sort of
Sorry about
resets
that.
them.
I was on another call. I didn't think I was getting on right away, but here I am. And the planes are going overhead.
What's happening?
How's
Tom,
everybody doing?
I'm going to promote you
Hear
to a
me?
panelist. It'll start you over a little bit. So just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. I think I got it. There you
Okay.
go.
Oh, great.
All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry, the planes just started going over.
Of
I
course.
can't really hear myself thinking right now.
Oh, I can hear them. There you go. I'm
Yeah,
in
now
the
I hear
basement
them.
too.
All right. Are you ready for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for
I know
having
it's a wild time in your life.
It is. But I'm happy to be in Burlington. It's a beautiful place. The sunset was just like orange and purple from my little office that I actually can't really see the sunset, but I can see the sky a little bit. All right, so I am here to give an update to, well, really to introduce myself to you, and then I know there are some pressing conversations that that you all will likely want to have related to reopening and to the BHS BTC situation. And so what I thought I would do is I can talk for about 5 minutes and give an overview of just the 100-day plan and me and an introduction, and then do about 5 minutes on the school reopening, or 3 to 5 minutes, and then 3 to 5 minutes on BHS, and then open it up for 15 minutes of questions if I still have till 7:55. Is that right? Okay. Sound good to everybody? Okay.
You got it. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself.
I saw heads nodding though. That's good. So I'm Tom Flanagan, again, the superintendent of Burlington Public Schools. Excited to be here and excited for the opportunity to lead here and also to be here tonight with you all. I'm coming from Providence, Rhode Island, but I was only in Providence for 4 years. I spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C., and was a teacher there for a long time, and then an assistant principal and a principal, and then was in the central office there as the overseeing special education, and then moved to Providence to be the chief academic officer, and now I'm here in Burlington and here with the family. We moved into the new North End, so the other side of town from you all, I gather, but we're really enjoying it. I have three kids, 3 girls, 2 at Hunt, 2 at Flynn and 1 at Hunt, and they're in their first couple of days of school and really enjoying their time here. And so that's me. As I was coming in to Burlington, I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people about the schools and learned a lot about Burlington and got to build some important relationships that I really value, and I believe this work is built on relationships, and so I really think it's important to spend the time to meet people and to learn about where they're coming from and their priorities. And so I had the chance to do that. And as I was doing that, I was also building a 100-day plan, which identified the major things that I hope to accomplish in the first 100 days. I knew there would probably be not your typical first 100 days in a school year, but I did not know how atypical they would be. But alas, here we are. But that 100-day plan still has been guiding our work as a district, and so that 100-day plan is based on 3 priorities, and they are equity, engagement, and deep learning. And equity is really our North Star. So we're making decisions about everything through an equity lens. And one of those that you may have seen is that we decided to offer students who are learning English and students who have a special education needs that are served through IEPs 4 days a week of instruction in this hybrid alternating day model. And so it's pretty easy to talk about equity. I think it's harder to make decisions that are grounded in equity because it means you have to work harder. So that's our North Star right now. Engagement is the second priority, and that is just about listening. I really need to, recently I've been doing more talking than listening, more talking than I'd like, but I've been really spending time, particularly as I was coming up to Burlington before I got here, really listening to people about what they thought the strengths of the district were, what they wanted to improve, and what they thought were the promising opportunities. And so I want to continue that listening, and hopefully things will slow down a little bit, and we'll come back to the more intentional listening. But I have been able to meet with lots and lots of families since I've been here. A couple of weeks ago, I had a great opportunity to meet with all of the different, all the families who are served through our multilingual liaisons, and had just 5 evenings of wonderful conversations as I talked to them about reopening, but also heard their thoughts about the district and their concerns. And so I want to just keep doing that. So you'll see a lot more of that from me in the next couple of weeks and months. And then the third one is deep learning, and that's really focusing on student learning. I think that I was a teacher. I taught for 10 years, and I was lucky to be a teacher's assistant in my first year under a master teacher who was just, she was all about place-based learning and project-based learning, and really grounding students in the experience of their learning and giving them agency. And these were 6th graders. And the curriculum was based on in the Chesapeake Bay. And so it was about the people and the place, and a lot of learning outside, but also extremely rigorous. So lots of reading and writing and math and science connected to the environment. And so that's something that I feel deeply about, that deep learning or experiential learning or project-based learning. It's called a million different things, but I think it's really about creating agency and making sure that students are thinking critically, are solving problems, and are collaborating around problems. So those are the 3 priorities. And then ultimately what that will do, we're in our 5th year of a 5-year strategic plan. So this year, the goal is to work with our board, and I see Commissioner Fisher on the call here to work with the board to drive the strategy of the next 5 years. And so that's that we want to get done, right, Commissioner Fisher?
Absolutely.
And so that's really the kind of the overview and the background. I'll shift to reopening. A lot of our, the majority of my time here so far has been focused on reopening and a safe reopening. We had a task force that was in place that included 16 sort of core members of a task force, and then broke off into 12 different working groups. And we used a project planning tool and a project management structure that helped us plan and communicate and collaborate. And we also learned a lot through that process. And so that was our structure. And we wanted to include multiple voices. So we had a lot of different, we had teacher voices and a lot of voices on the work plan, on the workforces. We use the Agency of Education guidance. So they've come out with guidance that they've updated now twice. And they told us that we should open in step 2. And step 2 requires some things like health checks as students are coming into the building, masking when students are in the building as much as possible, and physical distancing. And those numbers for physical distancing were originally 6 feet. So they recommended a 6 feet physical distance as much as possible for students. They changed that from 6 feet to 3 to 6 feet on, I think it's August 11th. So that allowed us to shift and to think, okay, we can probably serve more students, and who should we serve? And that was when we decided to serve more students. But still, we weren't able to serve all students and achieve that physical distancing recommendation. So that led us to this hybrid alternating day model, which I think is the best that we can do right now. But I do think that the agency is going to update the guidance sometime soon to move us into step 3. if the conditions are right in Burlington at the time in terms of the low numbers of low infection rates in the community, and our staffing is able to support us moving into a full day instruction, in-person instruction 4 days a week, that's our goal. So that's really the reopening. Lots of work on the facilities, as you can imagine, the review of the system, of all of our ventilation systems, and updating filters and increasing airflow and fans and purifiers and all that kind of stuff is the work that we did, and we took that really seriously coming into the school year. I've been really impressed with how the schools have opened. I know that there are kinks to work out as we come in, because it's really about everything we do right now is different. Every step that Joe and his team over at Champlain are taking is done differently than it would have been last year at this time. Planes are going over again. I'll just talk through them. Just let me know if you can't hear me. Anyway, so schools have opened. We're in our 7th day of school. But as I talked to the principals today, or we were meeting today, and we were talking about how it's actually it's really the first, it's more like the first week, because students have only been in person for 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 days at this point. So we're learning a lot, but we do hope, and our goal is to get back to in-person instruction as soon as possible, 4 or 5 days a week. And so I think what you'll see is a kind of a staged approach to coming back in person. And so that was all going actually pretty well and better than I thought it would. And we learned that there were so I'm going to kind of shift into the BHS BTC part of this. And we learned that there were high PCB levels in the air in the F building of the high school, which is the back building in the high school, where the Burlington Technical Center is primarily, but there are also some BHS classes and in that section of the building. And so we had to temporarily close the building while we learned more about that. And so it was just really, really unfortunate timing, and not at all what I was hoping would happen in the first week of school, but also fortunate that we were able to learn about this and get out and not come into the building in full. We did a couple of days of orientation where there were and some staff were in the building for the time up until that first week of school. But what I want to make sure you all know and is that this is a part of the re-envisioning and the renovation that is planned to happen at the high school. So it was not at all a result of the COVID preparation or the airflow work that we were doing and the ventilation work that we were doing. It is related to the construction. And so when you enter into a construction project, you have to test the materials before you can move forward with that construction project. And we started testing materials back in July of 2019, and testing continued. So testing on window frames, on masonry, so the testing kind of process evolves as they learn more about the materials that are in the building. And so that testing continued. It got a little bit stalled when COVID hit because there was testing going on before COVID. We contracted with an outside contractor who was a specialist in PCBs, as we learned that there were PCBs in the soil at that point. And so but that contractor was out of town and couldn't come to Burlington at that point. And so that delayed a month or two, I think. And this was before my time, but I'm catching up on the timeline. And so we ended up deciding on December 1st that we needed to test the air. So we had learned enough about the about the materials that we learned that we needed to test the air in early September. And so on September 1st, we did the air, or late August, early September. So we did those air tests on September 1, and we found high PCB results in the F building. And those results were high enough that it was clear to me, and I consulted with the mayor and the Secretary of Education and our school board chair at that time, who also talked to other school board members about this, I believe, and that we just were not able to feel like we could come back safely with the numbers the way they were in building F. And so we ended up deciding to close that building until we got the other numbers back. And then we got those numbers for the rest of the building back early this week on Tuesday. And what we learned was they were below the Environmental Protection Agency numbers. Those EPA numbers are at about 600, or between 500 for students of this age, 600 for adults. And so they were all below that number, and it's nanograms per cubic meter. But they were above the 15 nanograms per cubic meter that is required by the Vermont Department of Health. And so we met with the Vermont Department of Health and the EPA yesterday, and they both recommended that we continue to do more testing and not return to the building. And they told us that in the fastest they had ever seen, well, our consultants told us the fastest they had ever seen testing and remediation to get back into a building in this type of situation was a really aggressive timeline of 3 months. And so at that point we had to make a decision, and I wanted to be clear with the community that we're talking about months in terms of getting back into the high school building. But in the meantime, in the past couple of days, we've been working extremely hard to find alternative space. And so I'd rather under promise and over deliver. So if there's a chance of us getting back in earlier, we may. Chair Wool was out walking around looking for spaces. I have an open letter from students telling me they want to get back in, and I want to get back in. So, we're going to be really aggressive in trying to get back into in-person instruction for our high school students. So I'm 2 minutes over my end time of 7:42, and I'm sorry if I bored you to sleep, but I'm open for questions.
Yeah, so if anybody wasn't on at the beginning of the call, if you'd like to comment or ask a question, there's a small hand icon in the bottom middle of your screen. So you could raise your hand if you have any questions for the superintendent or comments or whatever you'd like to add to this discussion.
I'll lead off because I don't see anybody with a hand raised yet. Do we have any sense of how long these PCBs were in the air? I'm assuming from the little I know about this that these were installed decades ago when the building was constructed. Do we have any sense of how long this has been a problem? Is this just something we've recently found, or is it a sense that it's only gotten to this kind of level recently, or is that just something we don't know yet?
It's something we don't know, and we probably won't know, because what we're learning, I'm learning a lot about PCBs right now. I have to admit I didn't know a whole lot about them before, but what we've learned is that all we know are the ratings when the test was administered, and there are a lot of different things that could change the way that those ratings or those results come out, from the temperature of the room to the flow of the air. So we really don't know, and we won't know how long the numbers have been in the air and the way that they were when we got the results back last week. What we do know is that PCBs were in the building materials that were and they have been in the building materials since the building was built.
Do we know which part of it? Is it window caulking? I know I've read about that as an issue before in these sort of buildings, but
Yes, we do know in window caulking.
Okay.
You know that there are PCBs in the window caulking, and there are ways to mitigate that. It's kind of like asbestos, where you use, you know, like you don't want to. This is why we do this work before the construction projects happen, because you don't want to stir up the materials and make them airborne. But the consultants are wanting to look more closely at the building because they're wondering about why there are different levels in different rooms and pretty significantly different levels in different rooms. So that's one thing that we're going to be looking into. And there are parts of the building. So we have our kitchen in the building, and the kitchen serves the high school, but also serves other parts of the other schools or throughout the school district. And that area was below the Vermont standard. So we're going to keep running the kitchen. So it's just, you know, they were okay with that, but there's a lot more to learn about why, and then there's some really big decisions to make. You know, in some districts, if you're doing a construction project, there are the extra school that schools kind of cycle into as they're doing work. So if there was a way for us to find a place to have Burlington High School for 1.5 years, we may not even want to spend a whole lot of time mitigating and testing and remediating, and we may just want to start with construction, or we may need to, or we may want to spend a lot of time and do the due diligence on the testing and remediating. So there are some big. That's probably the biggest decision for us to make now, and we are, but we you know, we are interested in finding swing space to see if that could be another solution to this. That could also get us back into school sooner if we could find that's our best option of getting back to school sooner.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm just going to say hello. My name is Lucia Campriello. I just wanted to say welcome and introduce myself. I'm a South End resident and a member of the steering committee for Ward 5. And I also wanted to say hello and acknowledge Principal Restaghini's amazing leadership.
Yeah.
I've got 2 young children, one of whom just began first grade at Champlain Elementary School. And really just a shout out to all of the administrators and teachers and staff throughout the school district. This is a total nightmare, really, and it's not been easy. And I think it's apparent to me as a parent that everyone is really doing their best, and that you know, you are all incredibly committed to doing your best and to serving our children and our families as best as we can. So I just give you all a lot of credit and extend gratitude for the hard work. I'm sure there's a lot flying your way, and it's not easy circumstances to enter a new community. So thank you and stay strong, and we will move through this together.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, you know, Principal Restaghini is a big troublemaker, it turns out. He is great. We're really lucky to have him and his steady but strong leadership. I mean, he's going to push us and push us on some things that we really need to be pushed on. And so I think we may see a new mural going up. Is that about to happen, Principal Restaghini? But the kind of the deeper work around building relationships.
Yeah, it's too late. It's already up.
I think he's done a great job of building relationships, and that's allowing then the next level of work, right? Which is how do we make sure that all of our students and every student is getting a really high quality experience. We also have a great new principal over at Edmonds Middle School. James Kiefer came to us from Minnesota. He's pushing hard right now in really challenging times. Elementary's tough, middle school's really tough in any circumstance, but definitely in these circumstances. So great leaders across the board, and I appreciate that. It's nice to meet you in person.
Superintendent, could you talk a little bit? My name's Andy Simon. I'm on the steering committee as well, and I have a granddaughter in first grade at Champlain School. Could you talk a little bit more about what will trigger the move to step 3 and say a 4 or 5 day school week, and what the threshold will be and who makes that call?
So the move to step 3 is going to be made by the Department of Health in collaboration with the Agency of Education. So those two agencies, although the Agency of Education has said that the Department of Health will ultimately take the lead on making that call of when it's safe to move to step 3. Although we are learning, well, and we've been hearing all along would probably happen in the month of September or October or early October, depending on how things were going with public health. And so step 3 allows for a little bit more flexibility. And so it's not an automatic that you come back to school. It doesn't say, because we're in step 3, you come back to school 4 days a week or 5 days a week. It just relaxes some of the rules. So the two big ones, or the one really big one, is that it relaxes the physical distancing rule. So you don't need a 3 to 6 foot physical distance. Although it's the 3 to 6 feet language is still in there. It's just much less emphasized in the language. And it's possible that language could change too, because they have changed language around the physical distancing. And that was in the first major update that they did to the guidance. So step 3, we'll hear from the Agency of Education in the state. What that'll do for us is allow us to assess where we are and whether and how much we've been able to manage the pandemic and student safety and staff and student safety and health in our current model, and then would allow us to bring more students back. The other thing it does is it allows us to use the cafeteria and the gym. So we currently are not able to use those. So it allows you to use some bigger spaces, and that helps, Principal Restaghini and the other principals to sort of lighten the duty load. There's a load right now on teachers around the amount of duties that they're having to do, because they're with their students essentially all day, because students can't come together in bigger groups. So that would be the major change. And what we would need to look at is our staffing. So with the number of students that are in remote and the number of students in school, are we able to staff the model so that we can get back in more days? So it's two things: staffing, and it's sort of where we are with public health. And we're in a good place. I mean, with public health, I think we're in a really strong place to return more than 2 days a week, but we also need to be careful and we need to be safe. So it's striking that balance. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. And I just have a quick follow-up.
Sure.
What percentage of students in the Burlington School District, or percentage of parents, chose full remote learning this time around?
About 10%.
Okay.
Which is less than I thought it was going to be. We were predicting 15 to 20%, and so 10% showed us that people really want to get back to school. But some families chose remote, and that's great too. That's fine too. It is really challenging because we're essentially running two pretty separate models with the same number of staffing. So we didn't add any staff to develop a remote model. And so that adds some challenges as we come out of step 3, or out of step 2 into step 3, and start thinking about bringing more students back.
Thank you.
I think we can do it. Thank you.
Jillian, I have a follow-up question to Andy, if that's okay. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but okay. Yeah. Yep. Superintendent Flanagan, my name's Ben Travers. I'm also on the NPA steering committee. I've had my video off most of the time because I have my Champlain kindergartner and 2-year-old that I'm trying to get down to bed right now, but obviously was interested to hear what you say. I echo what Lucia said, in that Mr. R has been awesome as a new family in Champlain and creating a welcoming atmosphere there. And I'm sure I'm one of many people here in Burlington who are very excited that you've joined our community, and your leadership thus far. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a brief follow-up question to Andy's great question with respect to the move from step 2 to step 3, which is that, I've heard you said tonight, and I've heard you said in earlier emails that the need is for us to move from step 2 to step 3. And then I've also heard something along the lines of, and if case numbers stay where they are, or and if case numbers stay low. But when you say that, is that you're thinking, well, case numbers need to stay low in order for us to remain at step 3? Or is there some additional threshold, like even if the state were to move to step 3, we are also looking at some other numbers local here to Burlington or maybe to Chittenden County, where even if the state is at step 3, we might not go there because numbers have reached a certain point. And if that is the case, do you know what that threshold is yet, and what we would be looking for at a local level in order to be open, even if schools statewide were able to go there?
Yeah, so first, the step 2 to step 3 gives us the ability to make the move to 4 days, but doesn't mean that we automatically move to 4 or 5 days to more in person. And so to your point, it is about, there is flexibility there because of local context, right? So if our numbers are low, or where they are now, I mean, the numbers where they are now are acceptable, and the southwestern part of the state, in Brattleboro they're not, right? Then Brattleboro doesn't go back to school, and we still can. So the state left that flexibility for us. We don't have a precise number that we're looking at, and the numbers as they are now would allow us to go back. And what we're hearing from our partners, our local pediatricians who we've been speaking with, they're saying we're ready. Even the Secretary of Education is saying, by the numbers, we've been ready to go back since July. But the question was what was going to happen when the universities came back in, and that has gone well, it seems to me. And so it's just something that I'm just watching it daily and making sure that we're not seeing any spikes or anything that would cause concern, but not an exact number that we're looking for. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Ben. Well, I think we've run magnificently on time, so great start with our community here. Superintendent Flanagan, it's so nice to have you here. Thanks for hanging out and chatting.
Yeah,
it's a lot to have to all at once.
Yeah, no, but I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Before you go, Superintendent, I just wanted to introduce myself after rudely accosting you without telling you who I am about PCPs. My name is Billy Clark. I'm also a Ward 5 Steering Committee member. I have 2 young girls, 3 and 1, who will be very shortly headed off into the public school system. So I'm very excited to see you here and really appreciate all the work and really appreciate you taking the time to talk to our community like this. So
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to meet you. All right.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that was great. And I think we're ready to introduce Renee and Alyssa. If you guys want to kick off what you are up to.
Hi. So my name's Renee Greenlee. I'm an artist here in the local community. So I live over in the south end of Burlington. So we've probably crossed paths at some point over at Oakledge or in the parks or at City Market. I feel like that's where I've spent most of my time, especially during the pandemic. I'm mostly at City Market. So Alyssa and I wanted to share some information with you about creative reuse. And before I do that, Alyssa, if you would also like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm also a teaching artist. I've now done projects at almost all the schools in the Burlington School District, and in the South End, most recently at Champlain, the 5th grade project last year while we were still remote was the weavings that are on the garden. That was a project I did with the kids all while they're at home bringing their artwork in. So maybe you've seen that, and definitely some of the other schools. And like Renee, we both teach at BCA. Right now I'm doing the remote learning days. Some of the Champlain students are definitely in my class and very excited about the new mural going up on their school. We've talked about that a lot. And this was a fun project that we did specifically in the Old North End and with residents from Integrated Arts Academy, Sustainability Academy, the Senior Center, and the Family Room Childcare Center in that part of town.
So we basically wanted to share with you some visuals about the work that we have done and sort of why we decided to highlight the recycling waste stream within our communities. And so I created 2 videos. One is a slideshow and the other is a documentary of our project. And they're 3 minutes long, so very brief videos. But I was thinking about sort of the questions behind why we created this work, because, you know, as Alyssa said, we're both teaching artists. We've been in, well, Alyssa's been here longer. I've been here for 5 years teaching within the community. We're both at Burlington City Arts and have been within the schools. And so whenever we signed up to do this project together, we really wanted to do something that highlighted one of the things that we felt our community needed to work on. And this was the call was from the Community Engagement Lab. And it was "The Earth is Speaking, What is it trying to say?" And so we wanted to create a project that allowed many voices to come forward and say like what they thought about our topic that we chose, the recycling waste stream. So I just wanted to set that up a little bit for you. And the 3 questions that I thought that I would share with you as you watch this material that we've been thinking about over this past year as we've worked on this project. And we were so lucky to get into the schools before COVID hit. So looking back on this video was just really pretty precious, I think, for both of us, and thinking about just how wonderful it was to be in the schools at that time, and how lucky we both feel to have been able to do this project, especially now that, teaching artists scenario has changed drastically, because of COVID, and we're both still figuring out what that looks like within our community. So as you watch it, here are my 3 questions that I'll read to you. How do our recycling habits at home affect people that are working on the lines, sorting through all of the materials? What is happening to the earth as we produce more and more single-use items? And how can we as a community rethink, reduce, reuse, and then recycle? So those are the 3 questions, and I'm going to attempt to share a video on with you. So I believe that here I am sharing my screen with you. So here is the first video. Let's see. Our goal is to address the waste stream and its connection to climate change while creating a lake-inspired landscape built of wishful recycling materials destined for the landfill. You may have noticed wishful recycling materials when you're walking down the street, and you see blue bins with things like styrofoam, small plastic bottle caps, plastic bags, or even packing materials like bubble wrap. Sometimes you'll find recycling loose on the street, not even in a blue bin. Seeing the ways in which our community was not recycling properly was the inspiration for our project. Since then, we have learned that single-use plastics are often not recycled properly. Tiny bits of plastic are seeping into Lake Champlain. Often smaller than the period at the end of this sentence, the plastics may seem inconsequential, but scientists say they carry chemicals, are being eaten by fish, and moving up the food chain. When plastics aren't put in the proper place, you may then find them on your street, along the roadside, or on the shores of Lake Champlain. Plastic is becoming a part of our landscape. In fact, Luke Darby reports in a recent article for GQ, there's now enough long-lasting plastic globally that it will be a permanent part of humanity's fossil record. To find out what we could do to improve our community's recycling habits through a creative art-making project, we visited our local material recovery facility, also known as MRF. Our facility is a zero-sort facility, which means the sorting is done at the plant. Materials like plastic and aluminum are gathered into large bales, which are then sold to buyers generally across North America. In Vermont, we're lucky to still have North American buyers as partners. Many states and communities are shipping their materials to developing nations that are not equipped to handle the volume of waste we create. The recycling process begins on the tipping floor. All of the materials that are put into the blue bins and into any sort of recycling bin throughout our state come to one of two materials recovery facilities. One is here in Williston. Although there are machines that help sort out the materials and crush the glass, much of the recycling is also sorted through by workers. Here, they're choosing plastic that can be recyclable and tossing it into another bin, separating it from the other materials. The line moves very quickly. Witnessing this work, done throughout the plant, raised another question for us. How do our recycling habits at home affect people that are working on the lines, sorting through all of these materials? At our community art making events earlier this year, we discussed these issues with our participants. The recycling system is complex, but through this project, we hope to shed some light on the process and improve our waste creating habits so that we can better our community. Okay, so that's the first video that shows you sort of the inspiration behind our project and why we wanted to do this. And I think too, one of the things that Alyssa and I found that was really, whoa, sorry. I started the next video without, okay, come back. Okay. Sorry, you're witnessing my struggle. One of the things that we really noticed too is, about people working at the plants. And I mean, in thinking about it now in COVID times, I feel like my awareness of what I put in my blue bin has really increased exponentially, and thinking about the space that's between the workers, the things that they have to wear, just all the work that the CSWD has had to do in preparation and planning for the pandemic. So really a shout out to those guys for handling our waste. It's, we all create it. Garbage is a great equalizer, is one thing that we also found with this project. And so I think that's one of the things that we just found to be really enlightening, was thinking about every time we put something in the blue bin, that has an effect on somebody literally down the line. So, but what I'd like to share next is the work that we did within the schools, and so that you can see the wishful recycling mural that we made. So here's the next video that I'll share with you. Let's see.
Renee, you gotta share your screen though. We can't see it.
Oh, no, you can't? Wait. Okay. Let's go back. Sharing. Okay, share. Okay. This.
a bigger mural.
On your objects, yeah, you can also draw here and then like know how to fill it in. Your little box.
I'm making that. I'm making it with just
Okay. So that's our project in a nutshell.
And
you
it's,
can
it's in
actually
my
see
driveway
it.
right now. So you can come see it in person in the
Yeah.
Old North End.
Yeah, so if you go to Barrio, that delightful little coffee shop, on the intersection
Hopefully
of
this will get easier
Crombie.
over time because I want to do some things that I hope will really be valuable to you in the future.
The next video.
Yeah, that is the next. That's the last one of the last videos that I did. Sorry about that. But yeah, if you actually want to see, if you'd like to see the mural, you can go see it. It's just down the street from Barrio on Crombie, if you're in the Old North End, and you'll see it tucked back just right off the street. And there's a little sign at the end of the street too, so you can go see it in person if you'd like to. It'll be up for a little while. It's withstood the elements remarkably well.
Even that really bad storm where we had trees down, somehow the mural stayed up. So we
Yeah.
feel good about it.
We were impressed.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Jillian, do you mind if I just jump in with a question?
Go for it.
Great. Hi, it's so nice to see you both. Thank you so much for being here. Gosh, Renee, you're so right about sort of the emotional aspect of seeing a video with children and adults together in close proximity and the joy that the work together is sparking for everybody. I guess I don't know, I feel like I've started to cry a lot at these meetings, just really in touch with my feelings, but that was really beautiful. Thank you for sharing your work. I'm so curious if any themes emerged in working with students of all ages and learners of all ages across sort of the very young students at the family room, as you know, all the way up to the senior center, and just, you know, any themes that emerged for folks, or any sort of fun observations that you all took away from the work together.
Well, I think at first, like, they generally, anywhere that we've done the workshop, people are really surprised about the things that don't go into the blue bin. And so that's what a lot of the questions that we've had have been surrounded on. Like, you don't put black plastic, you don't put plastic bags, you don't put styrofoam, and you know, the almond milk containers or oat milk containers. Those are always so confusing because most products now come with like a recycling symbol on it. And I think a lot of us grew up with this, you know, if you see the symbol, then that's where it goes. But it's actually a much more complex system than that. Like your Amazon Prime, when you get those blue and white packages that have like the recycling symbol on it, it actually doesn't go into the blue bin. It goes where plastic bags are supposed to go, you know, at your grocery store usually has a bin there for recycling those. But I found that that's what a lot of people were just really surprised by, so much that doesn't go into your recycling bin, but we just keep putting it in there. And we just hope that somebody at the materials recovery facility will be able to see it. But as you can see on the line, things are moving very quickly. And so they don't have time to sort all that out. Or if you put your recycling in a bag, they usually just, that goes straight to the landfill because they don't have the ability to open up the bag and dump it out. It just has to all be dumped out and then sorted through the machine. So that's what I feel like I encountered a lot, was that element of surprise.
Yeah, I think another theme was, you know, we were talking about our bigger landscape, and some of the kids were really into making their own landscapes and what landscapes for them connect to climate change. And so
Mhm.
when you look at some of the tiles up close, there's their own like microcosm in each tile that then makes up that bigger lake landscape.
Mhm.
Well, and it's not lost on me, you know, that it has withstood the elements such as it has. I mean, obviously the artistic components of it, you might be less inclined as far as assembling the piece, but of course the materials, right? That's sort of
Mhm.
the lesson here.
Yeah, it's part of that strata that we're creating of just materials, of waste materials. So it's interesting to work with those materials and to talk about their purpose, but also make something with them. There's like an irony. We found that was like one of the hard things to deal with too, of just like, we know that these things are going to a landfill anyway, they're already existing, but still it's a little, you know, I don't know, just raises a lot of questions. It was such a great project to really engage with the community and to have conversations about climate change and about our waste stream. And it was a great learning experience, I think, for both of us too, so.
Thank you very much for presenting your project. I did want to point out that, you know, I went to that recycling facility too, and I was struck by both how difficult that work was
Mhm.
they were doing, and the fact that almost everybody was new Americans or people of color
Mhm.
doing that work. So, you know, that was a real eye opener for me. And another eye opener was the article in the New York Times this week that talked about plastic recycling and the fact that most plastics don't ultimately get recycled because of the economics of it, and that the plastics producers and big oil companies have been promoting recycling of plastics for years and years, basically to make people feel better.
Mhm.
So, you know, even the stuff that goes in the bins,
Mhm.
that legitimately goes in the bins, doesn't often get recycled.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
I think the
really
better
like,
term is downcycled.
yeah. Mhm. And I think too, it points out like how much climate justice relates to racial justice, and there are a lot of parallels between those two movements, and how we think about how our choices affect the larger whole. And so I feel like that's, you know, a whole other vein of conversation that's really good and interesting to talk about. And also, and just thinking about the facts behind recycling, and that it's not an answer to our problem. And so really the issue is thinking about how do we reduce and reuse and then recycle as you know, almost a last resort rather than like the first thing that we always go to. So that was also that, I mean, visiting the materials recovery facility was just really eye-opening. It's kind of overwhelming to see how much we create even as a small community, you know, relative to the rest of the United States. So it's pretty interesting.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So our city councilors are not here yet, as far as I can see. So if people would like to continue to chat about recycling until someone shows up, I love that. But yeah, I'm not seeing Joan or Chip with us yet.
Well, I guess I would be curious if anyone, the questions that we did talk about, I think Andrew brought up that point about, recycling not being the perfect fix and that it's, often not happening. Some of the things that we learned too is that all of the waste that is being sent to developing nations, you can find so much information about how some of those places are really kind of like drowning in our plastic because it is just so overwhelming. So it is, I think there are so many other issues that this kind of like work can sort of be a stepping stone to other topics. And I was wondering if anybody had any questions about that or things that they noticed in our own neighborhood. I know I always notice it. Me picking out stuff in your blue bin, sorry. I have done that before. But it's like once you're aware of it, it's so hard not to do something. Because I think about the people that are working at the MRF and that they have to try to sort through that in like these crazy conditions, and it just doesn't. It's a really difficult job. So I don't know if anybody noticed anything or has any questions about the project or about recycling in general. We can also point you to the CSWD's website is very thorough in what they accept and what they don't accept, and it takes some, sometimes special recycling takes a minute to figure out where things can go. But it's worth, looking into.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize about the black plastic. I think especially sort of throughout COVID, there was such a huge spike in takeout.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's your options are almost always styrofoam or black plastic. And I have wondered how that would be affected by the single-use plastic legislation, but it was my understanding that it was like restaurants had to use up what they already had, and I imagine people really stockpiled.
Yeah. It seems like when you think about the costs incurred, and especially when restaurants right now, are struggling, it's hard to make that line item for your, like for compostable products to put that line item, up above other things that you need to get because, your bottom line is shrinking. And I've found that even with places that were using compostable products in the past, some have switched to more black plastic or styrofoam. And I think that some of that is due to just like all the costs in trying to keep their business afloat. But the pandemic has like not been kind in the single-use plastic arena. I mean, thinking of masks, all the single-use products, all the cleaning products that we're using. I mean, it's kind of nuts. But I think the bandwidth, for folks, can be pretty low. There's a lot of stress. And so sometimes our waste is not our top priority because, there are other things that you need to accomplish throughout the day. And other people that are depending on you and, depending on your situation. So waste can sometimes take a backseat to all of our other things, but it's something
also
we
not
all
clear. Like we were saying, how confusing it is. I think even the compostable products, we learned a lot because we did a little training with CSWD to learn ourselves what we were then teaching. And I learned so much that what symbols don't always mean what they mean, and things that you think are compostable maybe aren't because they're coded, and there's not a very clear system anywhere. So yeah, if you don't have the bandwidth, it's hard to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think like all things happening with the pandemic is that even, we're just losing opportunity to teach some segments of the population about this. And then for folks who have learned how to recycle and need to relearn how to recycle, you're really struggling with bandwidth at this moment. But I do think, to Andy's point too, there's just been such incredible coverage throughout the pandemic on all the things we should be talking about as a country, which is heartening, even though they're all tragic and horrible. But it gives me hope that there is an opportunity to sort of redirect on some of these critical issues, and that it's our responsibility as people and consumers to help that conversation along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think whenever we start to demand other products, because really you can show a lot of what you value through what you buy. how you spend your time. So I think being mindful of that in all kind of areas has been really helpful, especially during the pandemic, because I think it is still one way that we can contribute, when you're feeling at a lack for things that you can do to help situations. Sometimes it is about where you put your money and what products you buy, and trying to think about that, who you're supporting, what you're supporting, how you're spending your money, can be like some of the background ways that we try to improve our communities, kind of step by step. But it does, it's an overwhelming thing to think about in the midst of all the other issues that we're also thinking about right now.
Jillian, I've learned through the grapevine that there are some conflicts with our counselors,
Yes.
and so I don't.
I just got that information as
All
well.
right, terrific.
So yeah, I think, are we still, I can't quite tell from the updates if we may possibly be still expecting Joan. It sounds like Chip is not going to make it. I'm glad we've had the two of you here to chat about this. This is lovely. This is the kind of stuff I miss about like having a neighborhood
Yeah.
of people to be with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if maybe Joan just like the time got away from her or something. I don't know.
I think it's a safe bet that she's not going to make it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we gave it a shot. Maybe hopefully we can hear from them at another meeting soon.
The other piece of the waste stream that doesn't get talked about very much is so the stuff that doesn't get recycled for one reason or another. I think a lot of people don't know where it goes. It's just away. The garbage truck picks it up, or you take it to the transfer station, and it's gone. But there's one landfill in the state of Vermont, one, and that's in the town of Coventry in the Northeast Kingdom. And they're still a group of people in Coventry who are fighting the expansion of the landfill because there's more and more of this non-recyclable product that needs to go somewhere. And I think the people in the Northeast Kingdom are very aware of where it goes because there are trucks going back and forth all the time, bringing this stuff to the one landfill in the state. So it's just another piece of this discussion that seems really important, is to sort of bring some reality to where the stuff goes when you get rid of it out of your life.
Mm-hmm. Not sure if it affected our particular waste stream, and I'm wondering if maybe the two of you or someone else here knows. I know there was the report about all of the glass recyclables that are just getting dumped somewhere in northern Vermont a few months ago. Maybe it was even last winter that they had the report about this, that it had just been like trucks and trucks and trucks for a long period of time, that the glass had just been getting dumped at a site as opposed to getting recycled.
Well, usually what happens to glass is that it all gets crushed at the MRF in Williston. And so once it's crushed, I think that was the story that I heard about. All that crushed material was just getting stockpiled because there's not a market for it. There's no one to buy it. And so the recycling stream only works if there's a buyer for your product. And so if you don't have somebody that needs crushed glass, then it just sits. And so they've been using it for like road fill. They were using it as like a retaining wall at some point. There was a new company that was trying to start up. I'm not sure what happened to them, that was trying to figure out how to use this glass as a means to making a new type of insulation. But otherwise, yeah, it's just crushed. And then it's too expensive to make it back into glass. And so it's a fairly like inefficient and expensive way of dealing with our glass products. So really your number 5 plastic is like the most recyclable, like most valuable plastic that's out there. Everything outside of that is kind of crap. And it doesn't really get used for, you know, or downcycled into something, and glass is hard. And aluminum is the best because it can be just continually recycled over and over and over again. And so it's better to do recycled aluminum than, of course, bauxite mining, which takes the aluminum, you know, out of the earth to make the product. So the more we can recycle aluminum, that is one product that works pretty well. In
and I
terms
know
of
there's a
recycling.
can shortage right now.
Right. Yeah. And now there's this can shortage. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy.
It is. Well, here we are at 8:30. I think this has been a lovely conversation, despite the lack of city council update. Unless anybody else has something they'd really like to close or add before we say goodnight. It's been lovely seeing you all. This is my first time moderating one of these, so thank you all for having me. And yeah, it's nice to see the neighborhood folks.
Thanks, Jillian.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.